What's up, everybody? Let's Talk Jets Radio. Hope you guys are doing well. Just got home from practice a little while ago. Another hot one. I'll save the bus story for at the end. Complete joke. As far as practice goes, pretty uneventful. A lot of walkthroughs, a lot of individual drills, a lot of game prep. Game two is usually the regular season warm up. Starters are going to play the most, so it seems like they were doing a lot of install, especially new quarterback, trying to make sure he's on the same page with his old linemen. They know all the cadences and things like that. Very surprised that they moved George Fant over to the right side. He was working there a little bit. Didn't see him as much towards the end of practice. I don't know if he's still on maybe like a pitch count, trying to work his way back. They also had Idoga on the left side. Dwayne Brown still not here. He got hurt on the first series, came out. I don't think he came back in. So it was Grant Hermans that was over there. So, him and Lawson had that big skirmish. And then there was another one with Garrett Wilson. He had a couple nice catches back to back. Looked like he almost tossed the ball at Sauce Gardner. And then him and Nathan Shepard had to get separated. So it was a little chippy, a little feisty. But again, just as far as like the overall tempo, the intensity, are guys getting into football shape? I mean, as an outside observer who has seen 20 years of practices, this seems a lot like last year. And I understand, if Saleh wants to be cautious, he wants to avoid injury. He said in his press conference after, that Carl Lawson was pissed that he didn't get a chance to play in the preseason game. He thought he was going to, and then Saleh made a decision last minute to hold him back. If he wants to blame the sod, the field turf, whatever, that's fine. But I think that you do have an obligation to make sure that these guys are ready week one in football shape, ready to go. I mentioned a few weeks ago, it seemed like the tempo and the pace was starting to increase a little bit. Things were picking up a little bit. You see the physicality, guys are chirping. It seems like guys are just working a little bit harder. But you're still not really seeing the extra, and at what point are you supposed to see that? Maybe it's to join practices, maybe it's after the second preseason game, maybe it's not at all. Maybe that's just the way Saleh's going to go about it. He's more about just installing the offense, installing the defense, and just trying to get guys healthy into week one. So I can understand it, but I did think that there had to be a little bit more of just a sense of urgency with the schedule the way it is. AFC North weeks 1 through 4. Certainly not going to be a cakewalk. Usually physical teams, aggressive teams, good defenses. So I just think the Jets got to be ready to match that tone, match that physicality. And, if they're just going through practice after practice where it's just a lot of install and a lot of walkthroughs and, guys aren't really hitting and you're not really simulating that game action, I'm not sure how prepared they could be week one. But I'm going to try not to overreact to that. As far as the quarterbacks go, Flacco, he had an interception to Breece Hall at one point. Didn't really throw the ball in the vicinity of anybody, so you wonder if it was just a miscommunication. Mike White, he had a couple nice throws. Both quarterbacks led some good 2-minute drills. They all stalled within the 30 or 20-yard line. I don't think anybody had a touchdown. Streveler, he had some nice throws. Probably had the nicest throw of practice on a ball to Mims. Had another deep ball to Mims that I think the offense thought it was caught. Defense didn't think it was caught. I think the receiver said, or the referee said it was incomplete because the defense was celebrating. So some of those plays are kind of hard to tell. There were a few others, to Breece Hall, where, he was shifty, making some moves. But again, when guys are arm tackling, two-hand touch, it's very hard to figure out, was that a 20-yard gain or was he stopped at the line of scrimmage? So a few other plays where, guys were in Flacco's face, a lot of pressure, a lot of penalties, a lot of pre-snap penalties, some false starts, illegal formations, and things like that. Kickers and punters still just going through the motions, haven't actually kicked and punted. Aside from that one practice a couple days ago, 3 out of the 4, they've done pretty much absolutely nothing. So hopefully behind the scenes, when the fans aren't there, they're getting their work in, and the coaching staff knows what they have. Other than that, I don't think there's anything I really missed other than the fights and the news with George Fant moving over to the right side. But one thing I will say, I don't know how this could possibly happen. It's a Sunday. Most people are off from work. You knew this practice was open to the public. It was probably going to be one of your most crowded practices, seeing how it is a Sunday. So sure enough, the practice time gets switched from 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. You figure, all right, plenty of extra time for them to get everything together that they need to get set up. No big deal. An extra hour of sleep, fine. So I get there, it's, I don't know, probably 9:15. And there's already like a pretty decent line, which is odd because usually the line's pretty small because whatever fans get there relatively early, there's usually a couple buses that are there, and once one of them fills up, they drop them off near practice, which is about 1.5 miles away. So, I get into this line, and it's about a half hour later. It's 9:45. I think I even tweeted something out. and not one bus has come by other than an 8-person van. And the line at this point was well over 1,000 people. It went from one end of the parking lot all the way to the other end of the parking lot, which holds each row, I would say, holds maybe 100 cars. So it went one line all the way down through the parking lot, and then it wrapped around, going down like 5 separate rows. So this line was absolutely ridiculous. And they had one, I think it was like 8 to 10 person van that was going back and forth to shuttle all these people. And that bus probably made about 2 trips from when I got there at, I don't know, 9:30 to 9:50, 9:55. So at that point, me, Kyle, Gang Green Day, like we just started walking. We got there a little after 10:20, I think. And once we got to our seats, there was still nobody there. Before we even started walking, I talked to one of the parking attendants. He got on the walkie. Before he even got on the walkie, he said, "Yeah, we think the buses are coming." I'm like, "You think? Do you see how many?" I said to him, "I'm like, do you see how many people are here? Like, the gates open at 10 o'clock. Practice starts at 10:40. There's no way you're going to get all these people here if there aren't buses coming." So he radios in on the walkie, like, "Do we still have buses coming? Is there any updates?" And they're like, "Yeah, we're still trying to figure it out." Like, maybe I'm overreacting, and I saw a bunch of comments like, "Oh, just walk it. It's a mile and a half." I have no issue walking a mile and a half. I walk, 3, 4 miles almost every day. Like, it's not an issue for me to make that walk. Some people can't make that walk, but more importantly, like, it's the principle. Like, take care of your fans. Let them know what's going on. Don't just leave them sitting out there for an hour to just sit in the sun and miss part of practice too. Like, if I drove 2 hours from New York or something like that, and I end up missing the first half hour of practice because the Jets don't have their shit together with the buses, I'd be pretty pissed off. And they try to discourage you from walking too, because you kind of have to walk on the side of the road for a good portion of that in order to get to the facility. So it was just completely insane to set up. And this was after I had praised them 2 or 3 practices ago when it was open, saying, everything was working well, got to my car quick, got out of the parking lot quick. There were no issues. And today was just the complete opposite. So maybe I'm overreacting, but it was just annoying to get there right away and to kind of deal with all that. And then people were getting to their seat, pissed off that they had already missed some of practice. They missed some of walkthroughs. I know it's not the important stuff. They don't start the team drills usually for about 40 minutes into practice. But like I said, if you drove pretty far out there to come see practice, I'd be pissed off. So other than that, I don't think I have anything else to. Actually, I have one other thing I have to cover, and that is for all the people on Twitter. And I hate to even call this person out. You guys will probably know who I'm talking about. A certain person on SNY. He's actually a friend of the show too. But to start putting out all this stuff before it's verified when it came to Zach Wilson, and we all know why people do it, right? I'm not going to say who has sources and who doesn't, who has legitimate sources and who doesn't, but you know very well when you put out a tweet suggesting that a player tore his ACL before it's been confirmed, before any doctor or coach or anybody else has said our player has a torn ACL, when you put it out there, you're acting like you're connected. You're acting like somebody told you that information is legitimate. But then it doesn't happen, and you come back the next day like, "Oh, well, I just said maybe," or, "Oh, it was just pending further tests. They said, oh, it was likely, but it wasn't sure." Like, the backtracking on all this shit, when you throw it out there like you're so damn sure about it, like, everybody's just after being the first one, getting the clicks, getting the likes, getting the retweets. Like, take time, let this shit play out. It's part of the reason why, like, I wanted to do a Zach Wilson video the night of the injury. I wanted to do another one, in the morning when they announced the timeline of 2 to 4 weeks. Like, I'm not trying to be the first one to just get the information out and have it wrong. Like, let's actually hear what Salah has to say. He's getting surgery on Tuesday. Let's actually see how the surgery works out. I think Samini even said last night that it's possible that this could be longer if they find other stuff once they go in there to clean him out. So it's a partially torn meniscus. It could be 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know how there's a bone bruise as well. It was a non-contact injury. So, I mean, I would think you're probably looking at closer to the 4 weeks. Just looking at what happened with Becton, the way that was handled, they're probably going to be a little bit more cautious with Wilson. Not to mention also exactly 4 weeks from now, week 1 against the Ravens. Do you really want him playing against the Ravens if he's barely been able to practice the last couple weeks? So I think more likely than not, and I said this during the stream, that if it was just going to be a game or 2 games, something like that, in all likelihood you're going with Joe Flacco. He's the veteran. He knows the offense. Not that Mike White doesn't, but he's seen more stuff than Mike White's ever probably going to see in his career. So Just as far as planning for week one, Flacco probably gives you the best chance to win. Is he limited in some areas? Absolutely, especially mobility. And with all these changes on the O line, you got a new left tackle, you got a new left guard, you got a new right guard, and you got a new right tackle. 4 of your 5 offensive linemen are in a different spot or completely new from last year. So, Flacco, obviously, he probably gets the ball out quicker. He could read defenses a little better. Maybe there are some aspects of the playbook that you could throw at him that you can't throw at Zach Wilson. But certainly the mobility and a lot of other areas, I think you're going to be held back a little bit with Flacco. And I don't think you're going to see Mike White just, again, if it was a longer injury, maybe you take a look at the younger quarterback. I don't think the gap is really that far. Mike White does look comfortable, especially going through his progressions. A little bit less arm strength, but pretty accurate. But curious to see how this plays out, though. If I was Saleh, I'm making this a legitimate quarterback competition, seeing what both guys bring, and just let the best guy play. But in all likelihood, just Flacco being the veteran, Saleh, the way he talks about him, he loves him. So I'd be shocked if it's not Saleh. Apologies for the rant, 11-minute video. Talk to you guys later.